The MBTA's Fiscal Management Control Board is considering a revival of late-night service. On the table is a plan that's less ambitious with only buses. Among those supporting the service is the advocacy group TransitMatters. To explain the proposal is a TransitMatters board member and former State Secretary of Transportation, Jim Aloisi. Thank you very much for being with us, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
The late night service has been tried and not deemed successful a couple of times. And, Boston is not New York City, so why do we need to be 24 hours?
Well, we're not New York City, but we're a very different city than we were 10, 15 years ago. Boston is a city that never stops working. And one of the things that we found as we actually dug into the data, we're looking at 60,000 people who have to either leave work or go to work in the hours between midnight and 5 a.m. Now, most of us, including myself, are sound asleep in those hours. But there are over 40,000 employees in the hospitality, restaurant, hotel, security, airport, and healthcare delivery services who are coming and going from work during those hours. If you think about restaurants and bars that are open till 1 a.m. and 2 a.m., the people who are serving you your food, the people who are cleaning up afterwards have to get home. And there's currently no transit option for those people. If you think about folks who have to be at work early for shifts, whether it's at the hospitals or whether it's in different security forces, they too don't have a transit option. There are 53 flights that leave Logan Airport commercial flights that leave Logan Airport between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. in the morning every day. And you can't make any of those flights if you take transit because you can't get there in time to do security and everything else. So Boston is not the sleepy town that some people may imagine it to be. It is increasingly a younger town. It's increasingly a city that has round-the-clock workers, and the night bus plan that has been proposed is meant to address those issues of, frankly, mobility equity that we need to address in the city.
Well, I think of night drives, I'm used to thinking, as you mentioned, hospitality, people who clean the offices overnight. But what about some of these newer populations, in the innovation economy and some of the research and university populations?
It's exactly true. So if you think about the innovation economy, that also is the hours are not traditional 9 to 5. If people are, for example, if someone's working on a project where they have to communicate with folks across the globe, in Dubai, in Beijing, and in India, they're up at night or early in the morning doing that. And some of that is virtual, some of that is from office. And so if we're going to sustain the kind of robust economy that we're enjoying and we want to grow, we've got to behave like a world-class city. And every major city in the United States, except Houston, Atlanta, and Boston, has overnight service. So we need to have overnight service to be able to compete, and to compete equitably, because not everyone has the means or the capacity to pay every day for an Uber or a Lyft or a taxi. And I think from just a standpoint of fairness, we should be able, look, if you have a 5:30 a.m. flight out of Logan, the person who's pouring you the orange juice at the concession had to get there. How is that person getting there? Right now, they can't get there by transit. So it's a matter of equity. It's also a matter of sustaining a 21st century economy, which we want to be proud of and we want to grow.
Well, you've looked at the demand, and it's not uniform from 1 to 4 a.m.
Correct.
But so how would you craft a service to meet that?
So we've proposed, and when I say we, TransitMatters is a transit advocacy group, but we have been blessed by having as very active co-sponsors the City of Boston, the City of Cambridge, and the City of Somerville. I believe the City of Revere is also going to sign on this. And so we've proposed two options, what we call night bus peak and night bus continuous. And by the way, the proposal that we have is for bus transit only, not for subway, because it's the most cost-effective way to move people around during those hours. Night bus peak basically says we know that there's high demand between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., and then it drops off. And then we know there's high demand that peaks up again in different directions at 4 a.m. because people are going to work, not leaving work. So you can have services that are peak, or you can just go through the night and not worry about that 1 hour lag time between 3 and 4 a.m. And that's really for the control board to determine what is the option that they would like to see put into place for a pilot, and then who will provide that option. And we'll work with them every step of the way because we want this to be obviously a success.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with Jim Aloisi from TransitMatters. Jim, I look at some of the projections around the pilot, and I know it's less ambitious than what was done before, but it looks like you still come out in the red.
Well, there's no transit system that I know of in the world that isn't subsidized. That's just the nature of how expensive it is to run transit. We just saw a few months ago the demise of a private sector mini transit company called Bridge because it couldn't figure out how to be profitable. It's very hard to make money running a transit system. So the issue of subsidy isn't really particularly unique. It's not uniquely relevant to night bus, but people will pay fares and there'll be some revenue production that way. But it will operate itself just like every other component of the service system runs.
What would you do to justify that subsidy?
Well, again, there are 60,000 people, working class people, typically lower wage people, who need that service. I don't know what better justification we have than that. How do we had a restaurant owner, we were supported by the Mass Restaurant Association, and we had a major Boston restaurant owner appear at the hearing to say, it's time to do this. My employees need this service. So there are many people who enjoy Boston's nightlife. They like to have dinner in the Seaport District, in the Back Bay, in the South End, in the downtown, and a few drinks. And many times those people, if they live in the city, can walk home, or they have the means to take a taxi or an Uber or a Lyft. But again, we're focused on who's cleaning the floor after they leave, who's washing the dishes, who's been serving them their food or pouring them their drinks. Those are typically lower wage workers. They need to get home. How are they doing it? And they do not currently have a safe, reliable, affordable transit option. And for the city for that economy to sustain itself, and for the economy to also bring equity to a city that we know from statistics has the highest income inequality in the United States, night bus is an essential component of that.
I want to talk now about the larger view. I mean, Boston, we have a lot of growth in housing and jobs. And if you look at a place like in South Boston, around closer to the Innovation District, you've got people at peak hours who can't get on the bus because there are too many people on it already. What needs to be done there?
Well, so I actually recently moved to the Broadway area in South Boston, and I'm very familiar with how the buses work there. And they are packed like sardine cans. The demand is high, and I think that if you look at South Boston, you look at A Street, you look at connecting South Boston to the Seaport District, if you look at Broadway, you have the capacity to do bus rapid transit if you wanted to do it. Now that would require you to seriously consider taking out a lane of parking in order to make it really work like it should. But I think there are many actors in this city, many advocates, including the Bar Foundation, who are very interested in having the exploration of true bus rapid transit. It works globally where it has been implemented, and it could be transformative in terms of both increased capacity and a much better, faster, safer ride for people.
Explain what that mode would be like, because this is not like a conventional bus, I take it.
Bus rapid transit would be a bus, but it would operate like the Green Line in Newton. So it would have its own dedicated lane, preferably a center lane, but it doesn't have to be a center lane. And it would have fewer stops, but it would run quickly, and it would not be subjected to what buses are subjected to today, which is they're stuck in traffic like everyone else. So if you want to improve the bus transit experience, by the way, it's the most cost-effective way to improve transit generally, because every time you touch subway, it's much more costly. So if you want to improve bus transit experience and improve transit most affordably, you'll look at bus rapid transit. And there are places, Bogota, Colombia, where I've been and I've seen it, Mexico City, Curitiba, Brazil, places in Europe, across Asia, people are moving toward BRT, we call it, for bus rapid transit, as a cost-effective, proven solution to improving the bus service and improving transit generally for people, and improving the public realm. Because when you initiate true bus rapid transit, you immediately create significant improvements to the streetscape, save cycling lanes, the pedestrianscape. It's good for local business. There's a lot to be said about it.
Turning to one other matter pending before the Fiscal and Management Control Board, and that's the firm out Indigo line. People in the communities here in Boston, they want it to be more like a rapid transit line, and the T's thinking of maybe having it as a commuter rail that goes all the way to Foxborough. Can you do that without compromising what people in the community want?
I think that's the $64,000 question, or the more than $64,000 question, which is we all want to encourage people to move by rail if they can, as opposed to auto. And so the idea of expanding rail to Foxborough as a mobility idea is a sound one. The issue is, folks in Fairmont have a legitimate question, which is, will that degrade the service that they had to fight for and actually sue for to get? That service has never functioned as well as it should from the get-go. There were significant issues within the past several years about missed trips. And so I think that the challenge for the MBTA will be to find a way to provide assurances that if they go forward with the Foxborough pilot, which I think on its own merits makes sense, that they do so in a way they can assure folks who want the Fairmont line to work well, that won't be degraded, but actually will be improved. That might mean more capacity, that might mean more equipment. There's a variety of ways to do that, but I think you have to be able to keep faith with those riders, and you can't add service that by definition degrades other people's service. That doesn't make sense. It's a big challenge, not something that cannot be met, however.
Thank you very much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Jim Aloisi from Transit Matters.